Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I do want to respect all of your time for those of you who logged in, on time, but I'll give it just a couple more minutes to get started.
If you guys can, while we're waiting for others to join, if you guys can go into the chat and just let us know if you guys are representing a certain agency, put it in the chat, or if you guys are maybe just, a concerned parent or a concerned youth that's joining our discussion today, please feel free to enter it into the chat so that we can know, who's in the audience today.
Dariana, I'm driving, and this is Sherilyn with Parent Support, and I'm currently stopped, but I am going to be driving again in a second. So I'm going to have my camera off and my audio off, but I'm listening. So if I jump in, I'll unmute, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks for the heads up. Drive safe.
Sure. Thanks, doll.
Wow, we have quite a bit of people here today. So exciting to see you guys. So for those of you guys who just joined, if you guys want to go into the chat box, we're basically just going through and just waiting for others to join. If you guys can go into the chat box and just enter if you guys are representing a certain agency, if you guys are a concerned parent, if you guys are a concerned youth that are attending this discussion, please feel free to let us know in the chat box. We have quite a bit of Youth Advisory Council members, so welcome everyone. Thank you guys for joining us today. It's really good to see you guys involved.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone. My name is Dariana Ortiz. I am a Program Services Administrator with Family Service Association, and I also provide oversight for the Hope Collaborative. So this is our very first roundtable that we've put together. So I hope it goes well. If not, please bear with us. It's our first time attempting this, but we find that it's very timely and very important, given that the last year has been rough to say the least. So we want to hear what's been going on and what your plans are for what your organizations are doing to move forward and still continue protecting our children and helping out families. I want to introduce some of our staff that are going to be assisting with this process today. So we have Noemi Uriostegui, who is our lead program specialist, and Tanya Aviles, who is a clinician at FSA, who will be the moderators. Maribel Perez is another one of our program specialists. She'll be trying to assist in keeping up with the chat questions. Feel free to address them to all of us, but she'll be trying to keep up with those. Stephanie Soto, another one of our program specialists, will have a couple of questions and surveys that may come up throughout the presentation. So this is somewhat of a kickoff for us in regards to a half-day virtual conference we're going to be having at the end of April, which is Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. And so what we gather here today will be super important for us, and we'll summarize kind of the overall themes and trends that we captured today during our half-day conference on April 29th, which is a Thursday, from 9 to 1. It's really just an open invitation today for you to be able to voice what you've observed, trends, and speak on behalf of your organization, on behalf as you as a parent, and just be very respectful of one another's opinions. Remember, we are the Child Abuse Prevention Council. I know that COVID has brought on a whole bunch of concerns, so let's try to stick with the theme of how the challenges have been in relation to the protection of our children and their safety and well-being. All right, so with that, I do want to introduce Jennifer Koffler, who is from the Department of Public Social Services. She'll just be doing a very brief introduction right now. And once she is done speaking, we're gonna move with Noemi Uriostegui, who will be starting off the first question. We do have this broken up into like four themes of different, what is it? Like we have a part of the presentation, about 30 minutes to discuss how youth have been impacted, another 30 minutes, how schools and educators have been impacted. So they'll go in more detail on that. But if we're going over the 30 minutes, we are gonna kind of cut off that part of the conversation and move on with the next. All right. So Jennifer Koffler, I see that you're here joining us. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. I'm very glad to be a part of this forum and discussion. We have, it's tough to summarize in, 3 minutes or less. The last, year and almost a half we've all been going through related to COVID, right? But I think that just like with any challenge, we have seen so many, COVID, this pandemic has presented so many challenges for agencies across the board, for parents, for children, but it's also, we can look past we can look into what we've learned from it too. And it's also taught us a lot of things in terms of how to engage with each other in different creative ways. So, if I were to just say in a quick nutshell, how our work with children's services has been, impacted by this whole situation, it had to do from everything, just like everybody experienced. Initially we had a reduction in the amount of calls that we received, which naturally had to do with people isolating in their homes more because of the pandemic, right? So kids were not in schools and they weren't engaged in as many social activities as they were before. And so naturally, initially, our call volume for new investigations went down. That was at the same time our staff were learning how to be safe and still interact with our families while our families were concerned about the same thing, right? So our social workers were getting all of our PPE gear and, looking at creative ways we can still engage with families and homes and how we could do that, by asking people to come outside and what can we do virtually and what has to be in person. So a lot of creative ways along those lines. And then, really trying to understand families are also concerned about their own safety. And so naturally there's that concern. And then of course, what children and families experience from everything from, the social isolation and the, parents and children, and then the difficulties that children had with even getting, the online schooling and then being able to concentrate and all of those things. And then naturally we saw an increase with a lot of things along those lines, like having to do with the stressors within the family, an increase with with the severity of domestic violence, with the mental health issues that parents and children were faced with. So lots of things along those lines. I'm sure that the questions will address more in that regard, but we worked through the process, and we learned ways to engage with each other in a way that I think that helped us understand. I think at large, everybody came together and really looked for creative ways to how can we meet everybody's needs? How can we pull together and still have the interactions we need to have, but in a safe environment, and look at how creative we got with virtual communication, right?
Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that. So yeah, we do see a lot of different, different concerns throughout the community. So thank you for sharing what the county has seen as far as those concerns. So before we go ahead and get started, we are going to be doing a few discussion questions with you guys, and I do want to encourage you guys all to participate. We do have a link that we're going to be sending you guys to. So if you guys don't answer it through video or through audio, you guys can also be able to enter your guys' information into the link that we send you guys for your guys' responses. So even if we don't hear from you guys through audio, then we'll also have your guys' responses. So we really want to basically just hear from everybody. If the question doesn't necessarily apply to you, you don't have to answer it, but just know that it's there if you guys do have something to add for that. Like Dariana mentioned, we do want to summarize the results of this discussion in our upcoming conference on April 29th. So if you guys would also like to participate on that, just feel free to contact one of us so that we can get you guys that information for that conference. So let's go ahead and get started with our first discussion question that we have for today. So Stephanie will be sending you guys a link. So if you guys want to answer it, you guys can feel free to answer it. But the first question is, what is something you have observed with your students ever since you have started virtual learning? So this is more for like the educators, social workers. What is something that you guys have seen or observed with your students? I know we have a few school districts here, so would anybody like to share?
I don't mind going first. This is Frank DeAnda. I'm a counselor in the Paris Union High School District, and I'm sure there's a lot of observations, and I have a list, but one of the ones that I wanted to, that you didn't really mention in the beginning was a lot of our kids are being unsupervised at home. So that's what I've noticed tenfold, meaning both parents work or it's a single mom, and these kids are being expected to kind of, or so to speak, police themselves or check for understanding on their own. I don't know how that works, to be honest. And I think that's leading to a lot of, or that has led to a lot of the problems that we are seeing in our school and our grades and whatnot. So just that observation there is a big one, for me.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to share?
I can add to that. I'm a school counselor as well at an elementary school for Desert Sands Unified School District, and working with students TK through 5th grade. We do see a lot of older students, and I'm talking about middle school, high school, having to be with their younger siblings. So the support that they're able to give is very limited because they have their own responsibilities. So my assistant principal is on this call as well, and we have dedicated 1 day a week to home visits to provide families with the supports they might need. So we want to provide a positive impact and also be able to bridge those gaps that we're finding. Internet connections, we're finding that some areas here in the desert are very limited with internet connection, whether it be Spectrum or the devices that we're able to provide through the school district. So that connectivity issue does bring a lot of concerns, and sometimes, especially these children that might not have an adult in their home to help them navigate through those issues and reach out to the school or whatnot. So that does add on to that. We're finding that bridging that connection and making those face-to-face interactions with these families have helped a lot of our families. So we plan on continuing with that, but definitely the lack of supervision or by an adult. Usually there's an older sibling or, so I'm finding it across the board.
Claudia, I have a question. So
Yes.
what do the home visits consist of? What's the main purpose, and how do you identify the families that you go do that?
So we are focusing on attendance. So we do look at our attendance records now that we started. This is week 3 of the hybrid model. So we're pulling lists of students with attendance, poor attendance. Some whether it's in person or Zooms or distance learning. So communication with the teachers is super important. Some students have learned that logging on to their Zoom meetings will give them the credit for being present. However, the work is not being completed or the motivation is not there. So we are visiting those families as well. We're coming over with resources that we might feel, okay, we do a lot of homework before we come to visit our families. It is a surprise to them. We're trying to connect with the families who have not been either connecting through our, we have Class Dojo and different avenues, right? Different platforms to communicate with their families, or families who are not picking up their phones when we try to make those connections. So mainly though, we are pulling from the attendance records and coming to these homes. Last week, we were able to visit a family who they just didn't have a vehicle. They didn't have a working car. So picking up the items, the materials that their children needed it was hard. So we came and delivered their school materials and so on. But yes, to answer your question, mainly through the attendance records, but also through that communication with our teachers, because sometimes maybe the attendance records might look okay. However, students might not be responding. These are the students that might keep their camera off and might not respond to the teacher when she is trying to have them engage in the class. So we're finding that it is fixing a lot of these issues.
I'm with Murrieta Valley Unified. I'm the coordinator of mental health support services, and similar to Claudia and Frank, what they were sharing, we're seeing that. I think all districts are seeing that lack of motivation is being compounded for a variety of different things. So we too are driven by our attendance data. So if we see a student who's lacking in engagement, whether they're just checking in for a few minutes or not doing any work at all, because if you pop into classes, you see the majority of cameras still being turned off. So you have kids playing video games or chatting with their friends or doing things outside of what they should be doing during class time. The parents are just as impacted as students are. So if the parent is overwhelmed or feeling the impact of the pandemic, they're not in an emotional place where they can support then their student. I think our district has done a great job since we went to virtual learning. We have a multiple, like an MTSS process for attendance and re-engagement. So home visits have been happening all year. We have hotspots that have been delivered or picked up by parents on top of devices, whether it's computer devices or iPads, whatever it is that they need. I'm also the foster and McKinney-Vento youth liaison for our district. So at each of my sites, I have a site liaison that is helping me check in with the families that are flagged as either McKinney-Vento or our students that are foster youth. And so we're keeping track of how they're doing. I think the biggest challenge is the students that are completely disengaged, and the families are as well, where we've made multiple attempts to visit the home or call and we're still getting nothing. That lack of communication makes it really hard for us to triage what is it, is it a mental health concern, is it an academic concern, so that we can link them to the appropriate resources.
I saw Sergio was gonna say something earlier on.
Yeah, Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
it's a similar comments that I have, like the Mr. Frank's made and the starting. You know, the Palm Springs Unified, majority of the students, they coming from work class families. They don't have supervision all the time with their parents. Also, is typical receiving information from teacher that they found that more at the pandemic advance, the children start learning more about how to use the system, and it's more children that use or stop the video unless yes the audio, but sometimes they don't respond the teacher questions. That's probably is a one change that they are not connect. They are not around the computer, but is is similar. And I'm here technically to get more ideas from another school district or from all experts in this topic to share this information with the rest of the school board members. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Now that educators, that you guys have shared some of the challenges that you guys are seeing with the students and the families, that was very useful information for us service providers as well. What is something that you guys can do to spread awareness about safety and information to you? You heard from the previous person, like in-home visits. I think that was great. And I appreciated Dariana elaborating on that because I didn't know that was taking place. That's a really good system. What other things can educators or community do to support these students and families in regards to safety concerns as a whole?
One of the things that we've done in Murrieta is that all of our counselors have a counseling page, either on Canvas where all of our students have access or on their webpage where there's a multitude of mental health services that are written up. Mental health resources that they can access. And then a good portion of our districts here in Riverside County use Care Solace, which is a mental health concierge service. So families can do it anonymously. They can go into the link or they can call. They can let them know this is the insurance that I have, and they can be directly assigned to a clinician, you know, whether private or in a different sector to be seen. We have newsletters that are going out regularly. We have SEL lessons that are, social emotional lessons that are being used on a regular basis. They're posted for students to access. They're posted for teachers to do in their classrooms, plus the typical guidance lessons that we do. And then right now, because of the pandemic, students have full access to whether it's a social worker on campus or their counseling staff. So we're making sure that we're flying out that information as regularly as possible, as well as family and staff workshops that we're constantly doing regardless of, surrounding either suicide prevention or various different behavioral supports, whatever that may be. So there's a lot being put out.
That's awesome to hear. I did hear some comments from several educators and other service providers that a lot of families are having a hard time being reached, like through email, because they're just not responding or not reading, or they're just busy, overwhelmed. What type of platforms are you guys using to promote this awareness? Are you guys doing like social media, several different platforms? And any other types of awareness, ways to spread awareness that you guys have been using you would like to share?
Yeah, one of the ways that our school district is spreading awareness is we purchased door hangers, and we've consolidated all our resources as far as what we provide, our internal resources as far as what we provide as a district, and we put those on one side of it. And then on the other side, we put like things about regarding child abuse, because when you make it known, when you expose it, when you bring it to the light, then people are less likely to do it. So just recognizing that it is out there and that we know is good to put it at the forefront, because people just need to be made aware, and families need to be made aware. So.
And hi,
Thank you for
everyone.
that. Go
My name
ahead.
is Edna Conde, and I just wanted to add to that. One of the things that we are using our social media quite a bit with the Comeback Kids program. We're also using what we call our Canvas program and our CDK hub, and we're putting out a lot of resources. Just like the previous person that spoke earlier and from Murrieta District, we are doing a lot of the same things and reaching out to our families in those ways.
Thank you for that information. I think that's awesome. Different innovative ways that everybody has become so creative in spreading that awareness. Thank you for that.
Can I jump in real
shared
quick
on
on
there.
that?
Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm a Safe Family Justice Center intern, but I wanted to jump in from the parent side. So I'm a parent of a Murrieta Valley Unified School District high schooler. High schoolers are difficult in their own unique way, but I just wanted to say thank you to MVUSD because yes, those reach outs have been received. I have been in close contact directly with the support staff. We did have an issue arise where my daughter has an IEP. She was having suicidal thoughts or wrote something questionable on a paper that was turned into school. I actually received a meeting, a collaborative meeting with her teachers and the school staff so that we could kind of go over her medical history because the teachers for the most part weren't aware of that. So then we went into kind of that social emotional piece where please check in with my daughter. I don't mind you checking in with my daughter 10 times a day. And I actually gave the school counselor permission. Here's my daughter's phone number. High schoolers, everybody has a phone number now. Check in with her. Just please feel free because she might not say something to me. She might say something to you. So I think that direct communication, leaving me out of it. I think the communication has been great with the parents, but I think too, just kind of removing the parents and going directly to a child that's older that has the ability to speak out. My daughter specifically just told me, she said, well, nobody's going to go on the counselor's page and reach out to them because that takes effort. So that's kind of what I'm hearing is they're already overwhelmed with the virtual learning. So they're not going to go that extra step to reach out. So she really liked it when they reached out directly to her.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Hi, everybody. This is Deanna from Palm Springs Unified. And I just want to kind of piggyback on what she was saying, because we have different teams that, reach out on a weekly basis, whether it's the attendance team or the prevention specialist. Our counselors have been great setting up, Google phones and Google chat rooms and just making sure that we're in constant communication with the students. And it's really helped them because kids will respond more to text than they will listening to a voicemail message. So we also have a program called EDGE Coaching. And so we have 68 staff that have been certified EDGE coach trained. And they have students that are mainly in the foster and homeless populations that they check in with once a week. These are students that, may have history of, as we were discussing, possible suicidal tendencies or, just mental health issues. And right now, everybody's going through some kind of issues, right? And I mean, we all are just dealing with everything that's come along with the pandemic. So our EDGE coaches make sure that they check in with their students just to see how they're doing and to see how they're progressing. And they set goals and, they may or may not accomplish their weekly goals, but at least we have people that are checking in on them. And it's so important.
Thank you for that, Deanna. So I see you guys, you guys are really getting creative in how you guys provide the resources to families, but what is something that you would like to see more of in your community when it comes to support? What are some of those things that you guys are looking for?
Sorry,
I'm going to go ahead and go. I'm Abel Ribas. I'm the chair for the Hope Collaborative for District 4. And something that I think is super important is to incorporate the voice of the youth. I have been a strong proponent of having a youth advisory council for quite some time. So I hope we're making room for some questions for them so that we can hear what they have to say because they're the ones that are experiencing this. And so something that we've incorporated at Desert Sands for some of our school sites, because the challenge is that is the uniformity within a school district. You can't make everybody do the same thing. And so one thing that I think is really important that I've been able to work with a successful team at one of my school sites is producing a survey for students in morning meeting, which is a period like that meets before the academic periods begin. And within that week of coming back, we introduced social emotional learning videos that pretty much do like a summary of what's happened, the impact on mental health. And then there's one that's teen voices, like how you see all these images here, youth saying, this is how I've been affected. And then on the third day, a survey, like how have you been affected and what do you need? So that information will shape what interventions we will be providing to the students instead of just assuming and not asking them and just, saying, we're going to do this intervention and we're going to do this because that's what we think that you need. And so I like to remind all of my colleagues that listening and making data-driven choices is very important. We need to listen to the children about what their needs are instead of just doing it based on what we think they need.
I love it, Mabel. Just the fact that you guys are integrating like that mental health component, even slightly, and making it a part of your school curriculum and introducing it. I love that idea. Very nice.
Deanna, I think you had a comment. Did you have something to add to that?
I was just going to say too, because it's true what Mabel's saying. Our youth, they have a voice and they rarely get to use it unless we allow them to. And so our EDGE program, thankfully, is student driven. And that's exactly why we brought it on 3 years ago. Desert Sands joined on this year as well, because we allow the kids to decide whether or not they want to join. And like, as I mentioned before, it's about having them reach their own set goals. And so it's been so important because we just had several situations where some of our EDGE kids shared, that they went from not wanting to join their Zoom classes to having 100% attendance, or, they went from being having D's and F's because they just didn't want to engage. And because EDGE has kind of kept in touch with them, our EDGE coaches, now they're getting, C's, B's, and A's. I mean, these are, all successes, and they really, it's kind of addicting. Once you get, you have that success, you want more. And so that's the hope for our kids.
And on the group chat, Joanna mentions that needs assessments are a must to determine supports, and Abram mentioned exactly, I would like to hear more from the youth and students, more about what they need directly and how they are feeling firsthand.
Yeah, so needs assessments are a must.
Yeah, and then that data, Naomi, is going to be used for the counseling department to develop like what groups and what students will be in them. So instead of saying, I think they need a grief group because people passed away, it's going to be based on that data. Like, okay, now we're going to do a group for this, a group for that. And then these are the kids that need it. And it has some identifying information. So then that way we're doing it so that it matches the need. So that's an idea for the other counselors on the team, is to do that assessment and shape the topic of the groups based on that. So pretty cool. All that stuff is so nice when it all lines up and it works.
We also use Panorama to do our social emotional surveys district-wide. We do it for grades 3 through 12. And so that's another data source that we use to identify who students are that are a high risk because they've identified having no social emotional skill sets, or, those students that are doing really well and thriving. And so that's another piece that we use to determine our tiered systems of support.
Camila in the group chat shared that her daughter expresses to her frustrations about not feeling like she is getting what she needs, but not expressing to the administrators or support staff in place.
Can I say something about that? Okay, so I'm Zaraya. I'm a senior at Rancho Mirage High School, but I've also been to La Quinta High School, so I've been in both districts. Speaking on that comment, I wanted to say this because I very much appreciate all that you guys do, and of course the districts and what they're trying to do, but I am like a regular, almost perfect attendance AB student and I don't even know about a lot of the resources that you guys mentioned. And I feel like I'm not going to know about it unless like teachers tell me or my parents tell me. I feel like social media is a great way for you guys to reach out to us. But at the same time, like as great as it is that you guys are targeting homeless youth and foster youth and things like that, even regular youth do need resources or just to know about them, because I understand that there's so many resources out there, but I'm not where a lot of my friends that I know of are not going to go out of their way to contact a counselor or to like use hotlines and stuff like that. It's not because we don't want to, it's just our tendency. We're not going to try and do that even though we might need it. So I can relate to that comment.
Thank you, Soraya, for sharing. Go ahead, Natalie.
Sorry, I'm also from the 4th District Youth Advisory Council, and I'm just going to say that the Panorama Survey is something that many don't take. Like, I know that they think of it as like, optional, which it is, but they just tend to just never do it. And I think it's because the teachers don't emphasize it enough, or they don't give like incentives for it. So we just never take it. So I feel like if any other survey is going to work, then it has to be up to the teachers really to push the survey, because if like the district just tells us, okay, take it, I know that they're not going to take it.
Thank you for sharing.
Sorry, my name is Amaya Ingram, and I'm in the 5th District Youth Council, and I go to school in Beaumont High School, so I don't know if anyone is here from the Beaumont School District, but I really do agree with the two of them, because it's the same thing at my school, at least. Like, there are a lot of resources that us students don't know about, and I would meet with like some other concerned students at my school with like the counselors, and they would tell us about the resources, but we had to go out of our way to like talk to them. Like, they didn't have anything planned. We were just like we went to the superintendent. We were like, we're not like getting the help that we need. And we met with the counselors, and they shared us with resources that they like posted on the Google Classroom. But it was like they hadn't publicized the Google Classroom or the resources. And I do think to make the resources more impactful, the teachers would have to directly share them with their students.
Thank you for that. Greg, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to share with our youth council that's meeting in our youth centers here at California Family Life Center. The group just recently talked about one of the things where it has to come from the youth. They're the ones that are leading it. They're the ones that are talking about it amongst themselves, not so much sharing it with the counselors, teachers, career navigators in our centers, wherever it may be. They brought up a really prime example from a couple of years ago, torn down in the 7th grade. Sophie, I don't know if anybody's ever seen that performance on America's Got Talent with her, but her message with that song drove her to actually seek out the help. But she got that, from other kids in school, just like Zaraya was referring to and stuff like that. So I can't be a stronger proponent for their voices to be able to listen. And then that's where I'm coming in, is that I'm going to listen a little bit closer to what it is that they see or what they seek, and try and help channel them that way. So I decided to share that with it. It's got to come from the kids, and we have to be the ones that are listening to them. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
I think it's amazing to hear so many brave young adults speaking and advocating for themselves. We appreciate your voice. I think it's very empowering, and it helps us service providers take your information and see how we can do things better. Because we can't do better until we know we know what to do and what is better. And in speaking of that, going into what can we do to further decrease abuse in the community? What can we do as a community to decrease abuse? We've heard from our youth. What are some ideas that you guys are having right now or already have in place? Are we doing it from a youth-centered manner, from a child-centered manner? What are we doing? What are some things that we are doing as a community, as service providers to decrease abuse right now during this pandemic?
I'll go, Tanya.
Thank you, Katie.
No problem. So first of all, I just want to share with everybody that I'm so excited to see you guys here and to have this discussion. Not only do I serve as the executive director of the Safe Family Justice Center, but I'm also a board member of the Hope Collaborative. And so it's really important that we have these discussions and that we have the opportunity to reach out to the public, because that's what our job is. So thank you so much for being here. I think the thing that comes to mind most and is very important for the pandemic is that prevention is something that we can only achieve through relationships. You know, prevention is something that requires ongoing contact with people. It requires that we build rapport and that we make the space and hold the space available for people to be able to tell us when something's going on. So with the pandemic, I think it's really interesting to hear from all of the youth that are here with us today, because the one thing that they're highlighting is that there's not a personalization in terms of the communication that's happening with them. And I absolutely can appreciate that sentiment, because not everything can come from an email or a phone call. And that's what we're missing, is that physical contact with people. So relationships is where it really is. We need to do what we can to come up with creative activities and events and ways to spend quality time with the individuals that we're working with. And, you know, make sure to check in for the sake of checking in and actually taking an opportunity to hear what's going on in the lives of our youth. And so I just want to start it off with that. It's your relationship first, and then hopefully somebody will second me and back me up on some other content.
Thank you for that, Katie. I think that was you really highlighted what the youth was actually asking for. And just to kind of ask you a follow-up question on that. So I know your center deals with a lot of different victims of crime. How have you been able to keep that relationship going in a safe way during this pandemic and provide those services, so maybe you can help out other service providers get creative in the ways you guys have been?
Yeah, you know, I have to admit that it's been very difficult for us, because the one thing that we were very good at, which was meeting with people in person and being able to, you know, have specialized time with individuals, was the very first thing that we had to stop and reduce to keep everybody safe. And so what we were able to do in terms of pivoting is we made it a priority to call people and check in with them. And even if it was just to say, like, how's the day going for you? That's what we needed to do, because it's important to note that, you know, you can put out brochures and flyers and stuff like that. And we do have social media accounts where we do a lot of outreach, but until you can have a conversation with somebody where they personally register with what it is you're offering, more often than not, people aren't going to take advantage of it. Or there might be like other issues that come with it, like fear and just not feeling confident about what the consequences might be if they share how they're really feeling and what they're going through. So we've worked very hard to proactively reach out to people, call them and check in with them. And then we also have a large number of youth programs. And what we did is we pivoted those programs to create some contactless kits. And we run a lot of programming online via Zoom. And so every week we intentionally meet with the youth that we're working with to have a workshop and to talk to them about what's going on and have the opportunity to check in. And the very last thing that we've been trying to do this year especially is increase our creativity in providing quality of life events. So we just concluded last Saturday an Easter spring drive-through where we created some specialized, you know, one-on-one time periods with families to come through and get an Easter photo with an Easter bunny and just do a couple of fun, you know, activities with us. So I think that's the most important thing right now, is that we can't stay digital and we have to look for safe ways to see people in person and make a difference.
Thank you for sharing that, Katie.
Jennifer.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I'm sorry, I couldn't figure out how to, I don't see the option to raise my hand with a little symbol. So sort of along those lines of reaching people, and Zoraya, I think you mentioned it. Was it you that mentioned that through social media? Like, you know, how do you know about those resources? You know, it's not like they can be, you know, you're walking around the campus where they could be around, and what happens if you don't see it, it's not directly given to you from someone. And you mentioned reaching out on social media. So it's really a follow-up question though, like how on social media? So a particular Facebook group for the school, or like, can you just talk a little further about how to reach the typical student with information like that?
Yeah, of course. So both high schools I went to, I followed their Instagram accounts. So I think that both high schools could have done better with not only posting like, oh, Friday night football, also what about like Mental Health Wednesday, you know, like things like that, or having lives or like discussions, something like this. I was about to write in the chat that I'm also part of the 4th District Council. I'm the commissioner. So we've collaborated with Hope Collab, and we've posted pictures with shirts of like the hotline and the organization itself. That itself with just my picture could have reached 100 people. Now that times 5 will reach a lot more people based on their followers. So I can say that that's gonna be the fastest way and most efficient way, because I'm using my computer for Zooms and for homework, not to like stalk my school's website. So I find that more interactive and more comfortable, because sometimes it can be uncomfortable to like reach out to your teacher and things like that.
Thank you. That helps. So Instagram is the thing instead of Facebook anymore, huh?
You're gonna that. Yes, Facebook is not not a demographic.
Those of
I
us.
was just told Facebook is for old people.
Yeah.
See,
That's what my kids say.
We need them. Zoraya, thank you. We need you guys to help us keep all these platforms.
Yes, totally.
Can I say something? Hi, I'm Brigitte, and I'm with Safe House of the Desert. We're a shelter for youth in crisis located here in Thousand Palms. I just want to let you guys know that we do have an app here at Safe House. It's What's Up Safe House, and it's an app that kids could download and get free counseling through MFT, and it's all through text message. So it goes through a filter. So a name nor a number pops up, and our therapists have 3 minutes to respond to that text. And the longest text message was 4 hours. So we have been seeing a lot of texts coming in since COVID, but kids have been reaching out to us, and we've had a lot of kids come to Safe House as well because of the family. Again, like both parents working and they're taking care of their siblings, and their grades have gone down and the frustration and such. But we had seen a lot of kids come through Safe House because of COVID, and the frustration too that we have here is they don't want to Zoom anymore. They want to go to school. They want to be around their peers. And we see the frustration here with them. You know, like pushing the computer away, like I'm done, I don't want to do this anymore. So it's been really hard, and we understand. But again, if you guys want to give the kids our resource to come here, they could stay here 24 hours, up to 21 days, whatever we can do. And for those of you that know anyone that's 18 to 21 that's homeless or at risk to be homeless, we have Harrison House. They can apply there, and once they get in, they could stay in an apartment up to 18 months for free, and our staff there is going to help them find a job. And once they get a job, 50% of that check goes into savings, so when they leave, they'll have money for first and last month's rent and all the life skills that they need. And I'll put that in the chat, Safe House's number, and also Harrison House's number, so kids can call directly to Harrison House to do an application to get in there. Again, that's 18 to 21 homeless or at risk to be homeless. And then Safe House of the Desert, 11 to 17. And you could tell the students too, those of you that work with the students, if they need to get to Safe House, they could go on any Sunline bus and the bus driver will call dispatch and dispatch will get them here. Or they can go to any McDonald's. I do presentations, safe place trainings with them. So when the restaurants aren't open and they see a youth out there, they'll let them in and call us to come pick them up. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I'll put that in the chat, the information. Thank you.
Thank you, Brigitte. We do have a little video on the app at the end of this presentation when we review the resources. So we love the app. We totally support it. Could you share a little bit about what are the incoming needs that the kids have been presenting with that text into the app? Is there any trends that you see more?
You know, because I'm not the MFT, and yeah, so they don't really share that with us. They just let us know that the longest conversation was 4 hours, and some have, you know, that they've been an hour long, but they have been getting a lot of text message from the students. I'm not sure as to what they're telling them because they don't share that with us. Yeah. But I should ask, like, what is the main focus to these text messages? Is it family problems or just, you know?
Yeah, not to disclose any confidential information on kids, but just to understand the common trends that these kids are facing. I would be curious what they're like seeking assistance with through the text app.
From the feedback that I've gotten and talking to some of the staff that oversee that app, it's a lot of just their feelings, their emotions, managing the stress, the overwhelmness of their depression, their anxiety, and just having that connection. Our UHS also has the Take My Hand website, which is a connection to a peer. It's a peer-to-peer support, which is always great as well, because a lot of our youth kind of get tired of us old folk, you know, talking to them and supporting them, and they like to hear from somebody that's closer to their age. And so that's another really great resource as well.
Sorry, Aaron has his hand up to say something.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, hi. So I had put in the comments just that it was kind of hard to tell, you know, which organizations were still in operation, and like who had kind of changed their procedures. So it would be great to kind of have more updates from community partners so that we can tell our families and our clients kind of the most updated information. I think for us, on the Safe Families for Children side, our prevention side, we definitely saw a decrease in referrals. I think some of that was because a lot of our referral partners are school districts, and so school districts stopped seeing kids, and so we kind of lost those referrals. We did see kind of an increase in referrals that had some element of DV around last summer, more than I could kind of remember historically. But yeah, I got a few calls around the fall time from community partners when things started to open back up kind of the first time around. And they were just calling to say like, hey, are you guys open or are you still hosting kids? Because our prevention program is having kids stay with families in the community. And people were kind of convinced that, oh, we had to be closed because of the stay-at-home order. But we were still hosting kids throughout all of 2020. And, you know, we added those COVID questions to our intake paperwork. We were making sure to have good communication on any symptoms that, you know, our kids and families had or our volunteers had, but ultimately it was still up to our volunteers and the parents requesting the help, whether they were comfortable having their child go stay with the host family, you know, with everything going on.
But I did, like I said, when we started to open back up in the fall, I started getting calls of people calling just to check and see if we were open. And I was like, yeah, we've been open the whole time. So that's just been something that I've seen is a lot of the collaboratives went dark, not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And so if there was a way, even if it was like a Google Doc where we could see who's doing what, and are they in person, are they virtual, I think that would be helpful as we're giving our families resources as well.
Thank you everyone for sharing. We have heard a lot about, the different things that educators are experiencing or have observed with their families. But now we're basically going to shift into hearing from those that are servicing our parents. So if you guys are a parent yourselves, you guys can feel free to also answer any of these questions. But specifically for those that are servicing the parents, what are the main stressors that you are observing with your parents, or are they experiencing or seeing during the COVID and the pandemic? What are some of those stressors?
Hi, my name is Teresa. I'm from Riverside School District, and I see a lot of parents that are single parents that, I mean, they're really not worried about so much as worried about getting food on the table for their kids. So I put together a number of food places and different resources that are up and working right now for special needs families, or any family really, because that's just being realistic. So, and some people don't have a computer. Some of the parents are very frustrated. So I work with them on trying to get them to a computer and different other places that it may be open, or just phone numbers and a contact person. They may be just old school like me. I like to talk to a human being. I don't want to be on the internet all the time, so I mean, I have a list, and I think it's really important that they just have something right away, just send it to them. So it's just different ideas. And I also have, what I did was for the younger kids, because all of us, including myself, have a hard time extended period of time. So websites that were educationally based, that is acceptable at Palm Springs Unified, different types of websites. So the parents don't feel like, well, little Johnny won't go on the computer at the time school starts. Well, let's try this. So it's more of an integration of the Zoom type of system. And you can use different types of behavioral positive reinforcement system with that. So that's what I like to do as an educator. But thank you out there. But kids just don't want to go to school at the time school is being, relegated. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing.
Hi, this is Angela, and I work out here in Coachella Valley with parents. We do the in-home parenting program, and we went straight to doing virtual sessions or phone sessions. And I'll try to keep it short, but pretty much you guys have mentioned a lot of these things, and I'm sure parents on here, I'd like to hear from them as well. But from the beginning was the internet issues. Having the internet capability alone was frustrating for parents. And then technical assistance, how to get the computer on even, or how to have the child log on. And it was a little bit of a chaos for a couple of districts to even also, get Zoom going or whatever virtual platform they were using. So there was, I think, a couple of weeks without no school for a while. So parents were a little worried and frustrated. Also, now they have multiple children in the home and there's distractions. And just, being able to have 3 areas for 3 different children who go, who are attending class, and then monitoring them and which one is doing what, of course, and then not losing, it gets lost in translation, what needs to be done or what needs to be turned in. And so I know and behavior, now they're noticing their children's behavior. that they're not staying still, and this is not something obviously normal for them. We've seen an increase we've done a lot of mental health referrals. Counseling has been the big thing. The thing is with that, it would be awesome if they can do something like what Operation or Safe House of the Desert has for youth, for parents, because they can just text, they get, because anxiety, depression has increased in these parents. And when we refer them, it's hard to get free or low cost services. There is out there, it's just that they have to jump through all these hoops to get it. And that's been a frustration for them. We've done some individual assessments, obviously, with the families when they've called, and we've literally we've changed our curriculum, or shifted somewhat to providing technical assistance and really just walking through. Some sessions are just, okay, this is how you're going to get on Zoom. This is how you download. So we've done that, which is great. It's been helpful and they're getting the hang of it, but a lot of parents are frustrated. The kids are saying, and as a parent, my youth are saying, like, this sucks. And it's not just the social aspect, not seeing their friends. It's really being in the classroom and having a teacher, teach them and being able to ask those questions and so on. So that's something I wanted to rush through and just kind of get in there, because I know we have parents on here that can speak to that.
You mentioned even like trying for a parent to try to be on top of like their 3 different kids, for example. And some of these 3 different kids might not even have their own individual space.
Right.
So housing of a lot of these more lower income families, they don't even have the space for their kids to be getting, for there to be quiet. And
right.
It's just, or for therapy sessions, we've seen where they have such small living spaces, they don't have the confidentiality component. So, I mean, doing school from home for a lot of these families, space-wise, has also been a challenge that we've witnessed quite a bit.
Right, and 3 is the number I threw out, but it's sometimes it's a lot more. And just and then they have little ones running around, and then we're trying to teach a session, and they're like, I can't do this, and so it's hard.
Parents shared that they've seen a large increase in referrals due to mental health for both parents and the kids. Before 2020, their number 1 referral was for their prevention program. It was for homelessness, and now it's definitely for health and mental health. April shared that many of their parents expressed concern with their children showing signs of depression due to isolation. They have also received more referrals for mental health services. However, students are not motivated to attend scheduled teletherapy sessions, and she says, I think they get tired of being on the computer all day. Samantha shared that in their area, internet is still difficult to obtain access to, especially when there are high winds, electric outages, and inclement weather. Home connectivity can be iffy at times in the rural communities. Isolation is great, especially for those without a car. Access to basics like food, clothing, shelter is difficult for many, and adding virtual learning on top of the daily struggles feels overwhelming most of the time. Maria shares that their district got hotspots for some of their rural areas, and Camilla shared they have security issues with the school computer use, access to inappropriate sites, even though the district has security measures in place. Thank you for sharing.
Maribel, I wanted to add, the CDC came out with a survey in mid-June, and they compared data the last year, and it showed that 40% of US Americans are reporting struggling with the mental health symptoms such as depression and suicide ideation and anxiety. Suicides up 2-fold, and substance abuse, 13% of the US population reported either using substances for the first time or increasing usage. And so as we know that those stressors have direct implications for child abuse. And so when we have half of our nation in a mental health need, and we already have limited mental health services, I think a big struggle is going to be the demand and the capability to deliver those services to students and children and families. And so something that I think is really important for us is to really be more, I think, prompt in delivering services. Like when you said, what's something that you would like to see different? I would like to see for us to be more active. Like here we are, you know, March, a whole year, and we're having this discussion. You know, we've known that mental health has been an issue since the CDC put that out in June, but you know, everything takes so long to get into place. And I think that's why we have students here saying, I don't know about resources. I don't know about this. And there's a disconnect. It's because I think we take too long to give what the families need. And so I think, like, I really loved Katie's comment about finding creative ways to give those opportunities for social interaction. That isolation is the main reason why everyone's struggling so much. And so to be creative, to do something, don't wait until it's a crisis or your boss tells you that you have to do something. Like, start being more proactive. The need is high. Start coming up with ways to start delivering some services in unique ways, I think is really important. And then something else, I think, know your community. You know, Desert Sands, we have in the Coachella Valley, we have a high Hispanic population. 50% of our citizens in the Coachella Valley identify as Mexican American. We have like a 25% of English language learners. And so something that I think is really important is for you to know your community. What is their cultural or ethnic background and what language do they speak? And so when you go about asking them what they need, there should be people out there that can speak in that language and that relate to those populations. And then when you go, you deliver a service, those services should be in the language and with people that can make connections with those types of populations. And so we have a social emotional learning page that has all these resources in English. But if half of our demographic is Hispanic, then half of, you know, those need to be in Spanish as well, if that's the language. So let's remember who we're working with and who we're serving and how we communicate, how they communicate is another point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mabel. Jennifer, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, I was gonna, what I would add was very related to the things that have been shared so far in terms of the increase in everybody, parents, children, experiencing more issues related to mental health. I think also what we have to realize is the impact of the mental health. And so what we see too are, you know, I'm sure all the service providers would agree, and from, you know, our work with children and families in the homes, is that the impact of everybody feeling isolated, naturally, you know, it was mentioned, you know, when kids feel isolated and frustrated and have difficulty with the online learning or concentrating on all those things, then naturally you see more of the behavioral issues. But also with parents, we see more of the socioeconomic stressors, sure, but also, you know, then that's coupled by how the mental health impacts their, you know, we see things like parents not taking children to medical appointments where they needed over time, or not getting prenatal care because you know, they indicate the fear of COVID and going into the hospitals. And some of those are really genuine concerns. But so I think we have to realize that some, you know, the impact of that mental health naturally makes people not seek out services just as much, not be as motivated to do things like dental appointments and go to medical appointments and, you know, be active really in, you know, with their kids and their online learning when they feel more shut down themselves. And so, and then we also see how that stress impacts the family. And and I mentioned it earlier, the increase with domestic violence. And so the other thing I would say along those lines is where the creative ways that the community has really, come together. Like, I live in Lake Hills, and it's by Corona Riverside, and one of the things that it's just a Facebook grouping where a couple of neighbors I don't have kids myself, but I would be a part of it if I did, especially those who, some work, some don't, but who have gotten together, the parents, kind of as a network, and said, like, on a rotation, the mom of the day, the school mom of the day, who kind of takes on, those kids for supervision, for helping them, go and get access online, for seeing that through. Employers are becoming, some are becoming more flexible in terms of, work hours or how that looks. Some people are able to telework, but where that works, that's been an idea. Also advertising activities. Like, I saw some, like, social distancing and with masks, egg decorating, or we're gonna have a run through this park with youth. So reaching out to people like that and networking amongst any community, way that you communicate with people, whether it's an Instagram or Facebook, or just in any groups you are involved with, starting activities like that to kind of re-engage people, and recognizing that really plays a role in people even having the desire to or the motivation to get the help, to be willing to have the help, to engage with people in the services.
Thank you for that, Jennifer, for that information and insight. I think it's very crucial that we are becoming aware of everything that's going on in terms of parental stress, and what we can do for these families and for our own families to feel more connected and know what's out there. I'm wondering if there's any parents, we heard from youth that were advocating for themselves as to what they need, but are there any parents, or even ourselves, some of us here are parents, what do parents need? Somebody mentioned that it'd be great if there was like a texting for parents like there is for youth. But what other resources do parents need, or in what manner do they want the resources? Because sometimes we do offer, I know for our agency, our mental health clinic, we do offer parenting support groups, and sometimes we find that it's very hard to engage and sustain engagement in the groups, and for obvious reasons, there's a lot of stressors and everything going on. So how can we help? How can our services help you? In which way do you want them delivered? What can we do?
Some parents mentioned something in the group chat. It's a lot to cover on here, but there are some good resources shared on the chat. Please take a look when you get an opportunity. Thank you.
This is Sherilyn Clemens, and I'm a parent, but I'm also a parent partner with behavioral health. And I wanted to point out that at our office, we do have a warm line. So we do have that kind of support where someone can just call and just talk to one of us just when they're just having a rough day. And we do have support groups and parenting classes and all of those things. And we've actually had tremendous success because I think people are feeling so isolated. But as we've gone on throughout the year, people have gotten more accepting of the Zoom kind of interface, the way we're doing things. And I found that even when I'm done with whatever support group, the parents want to stay around and chat because this is it's their new support group. So we've actually had a lot of success with that. And I won't speak to what all the challenges have been because everybody's done a great job of that. We've had, all that and more. There have been numerous challenges, but I think it's been really encouraging to see people, complete strangers previously, come alongside of each other in a Zoom format or a Microsoft Teams format and really bond over our shared misery of this pandemic. So
I think
we've seen a lot of successes there.
And would you mind sharing how what is the engagement portion that you use? Like, how are you promoting your service? How are you doing the outreach to parents?
Well, we've been around for a long time. We advertise on, I know a lot of school districts have us on Peach Jar. DPSS knows about us. We get referrals from friends. I do a lot of classes and support groups through various school districts, like Menifee is one of my school districts, and parents will just tell their friends. Moms will and dads will talk to other parents and say, hey, I'm doing this on 4 o'clock on Tuesdays, and it's really helpful and it's really beneficial. And we do touch on topics of encouraging each other, like, how are we going to homeschool? How are we going to, we talk about this, how are we going to engage our kids who have lost their motivation, and parents who have lost their motivation, and all the things we've been talking about. And it's a great, safe platform for parents to just share with each other. And I think it's always critical and I think it's always helpful when parents realize, oh, thank goodness it is not just my family. Because I think that's something a lot of us can feel like when we're just struggling, especially in the context of a pandemic where, like Jennifer was sharing in the beginning, we were so isolated. And we all just think, certainly I'm the only one going through this. And, and so when you can hear other people say, no, my kids are having a hard time getting out of bed, logging into Zoom. If they do log in, they don't turn their cameras on. And, and everybody can say, really? Oh, and it gives people great comfort, I think, when they feel like, okay, there's a sense of normalcy here. It's not just me. I'm not just failing as a mother. I'm not just failing as a father. It's because, again, while we're all alone in our homes trying to do this life by ourselves, we just can get really discouraged thinking it's all about me and nobody else has it this hard. So when they do reach out and they hear, oh, someone else is going through this too, it's, I don't know, it's a sense of camaraderie and, okay, well, maybe we'll all be okay then. It's not just me. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
That makes great sense, Cheryl.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Thank you for sharing. Camila, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, and I'm sorry. I'm one of those parents that has a teenager and a little toddler that I try to keep track of at the same time. So I just wanted to say, yes, that's completely what I need as a parent. I need to feel connected with other parents because I'm going through the same isolation. But I think the extra little part for me is I love what the district puts out about the parenting classes and the social emotional learning, and they're great. But I look at them and say, oh my God, I've had my kid in counseling for 11 years. I don't feel like I'm going to walk away from this as a starting point. I feel like, this is maybe a level 1 or a level 2 teaching level where I've already been through this basic information through 11 years of family therapy. Where can I go to a smaller group of parents that have these special needs kids that have the basic foundations already, that want more intense and more specific help?
Maribel, since I'm driving, this is Sherilyn again. Can you put my number in the chat?
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
I would love for you, ma'am, I would love for you to call my office directly. And because we specifically have groups, we specifically have classes for parents who do have children with behavioral health challenges, who've been in the trenches for many years. We have special groups designed just for that.
Thank you. I will definitely reach out to you.
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Sherilyn. It's Rachel Douglas.
Hi, Rachel Douglas. Okay.
Hi.
I'll see you in a minute. I'm just getting back.
Oh, okay. Lori wanted me to share as to what our parents are feeling during this pandemic. And we're feeling a lot of stuff. I have 2 boys of my own that have been doing the distant learning. They both have mental health challenges and they're both on IEPs. And I can tell you that has been as a parent, it has felt very lonely because has been lack of communication between the school and us as to where are the services and the support that my son needs. It's been very stressful trying to work full time and still make sure that my son is logging in and doing the assignments and doing the homework. And that feels very lonely, even though we know that he's not the only student in that Zoom or Google Classroom, and that we're not the only parents who's trying to balance maybe going to work and handling school at home, or multiple children all at one time on different laptops, on different Google Classrooms. It can feel very, very lonely. And so I agree, staying connected in some way is very helpful, whether it's with the school or even like the other person, I'm sorry, Camila, was that you, Camila, that said in a smaller group setting to be able to share and vent and talk and get the help that we need, because it has been very stressful. And I know that that's just my perspective, but and also in teaching our parenting classes with different people in the community, that's the same thing I hear, is that it's like that they're just trying to get through day to day, day to day, minute by minute. I got to get my kids through this long distance learning. I have to try to maintain my stress level in order for them to be successful. It's hard. It's been very hard. I could be honest. And also hearing and seeing the increase of anxiety in my children, because their normal has shifted to being at home and not be able to go out with their friends or be part of their extracurricular clubs and meetings and sports, and then not knowing if and when they're going to go back to school. That's been a huge struggle for me to see that in my children, that their anxiety has gone up. And then you have those that have lost loved ones to COVID. I know in my family, we lost someone to COVID, and it was an uncle that my boys knew. So that was scary because they're hearing COVID, and then they have an uncle that passed away from COVID. So how, as a parent, going to help my child when I'm already dealing with all this other stuff that's hit us? So that's my thought. I hope that's helpful in any way.
Yeah, Lori, I have a question for you and for the other parents that are participating, because I have heard parents are feeling like there's so many things to do and we're like in survival mode, just getting like remote learning taken care of without like losing it, right? There's just so many things that parents are balancing right now. And so that when they see a flyer for support services, not that I can say like much has been out there. So I want to validate those feelings, because I think people are like barely like in the planning stages. But if you were to see a flyer, what would make you maybe say like, oh, I'm going to sign up for this? So some things that I have in mind, like maybe offering it in person so that there's social connection, maybe free childcare, maybe like an incentive, we're raffling off some gift cards or something like that. I think like eating afterwards is really important. Like
well, I think to hit the two main things, food and childcare. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Food and childcare, and of course, if in person would be great, right? If we could do it safely.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if we're just gonna if the flyer says come and share your thoughts and feelings in a safe place.
Okay.
But we're not going to sit and you're going to tell me what I need to do or how I need to do it. Yeah, that may be part of it. But if I could go somewhere where I could just vent and share concerns, share thoughts, how we could support each other, I think I'd be like, okay, let me jump in and see what that's all about. Because a lot of people be like, I don't want to, it's another parenting. They're going to tell me what I'm doing wrong, or they're probably going to tell me what I don't need. I don't need that right now. I just need someone to hear me. I just need someone where I could just vent it all out, maybe. I don't know, that's just my point of
That
view.
was beautiful. I so appreciate your comments. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Araceli, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to thank Lori. That was great to hear from a parent's perspective. But as a mental health provider, some of the things that we've noticed at our facility that we've had some success with. Again, we've had to pivot in many different directions with the pandemic, but offering options, definitely offering options. And sometimes that's really difficult to do, obviously given the pandemic, but what we've done creatively is offering like every other week in person to continue, as Katie mentioned earlier, to keep those relationships and that connection. It's so important, especially when youth are feeling so isolated and parents are also feeling isolated and overwhelmed, is trying to be creative with what we're able to do in person. So we've been able to creatively provide options, not weekly, but kind of rotate different clients depending on the need. And then trying to slowly integrate safely groups for youth and parents. Right now, because the weather allows, I'm in obviously the desert and it gets really hot here in the summer. So I don't know that outdoors will be an option, but currently that's what we are doing. And it's working really well. Youth are really responding well to attending support groups, different types of groups, in person, outdoors, following all the safety measures in place. So just wanted to share some of that.
Araceli, how are you finding the response from that being an option? Because I know some people are like super scared to go out anywhere, but are you finding that they're like, yes, we could go in person? That's a option. What's their response to that?
That's a great question. I think initially, because the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center, we continued, providers and the forensic department continued to provide services. That didn't change. We still continue to come to our office space, everyone obviously social distancing involved, but we continue to provide service, and the forensic department would still continue to bring people in person because of the nature of the circumstances, child abuse related. So people started to notice all the safety components that we had in place to ensure everyone's health and safety. And I think that gave people reassurance. A lot of our referrals do come from law enforcement and the forensic department. So I think coming in initially to see what we were doing to keep everyone safe was reassuring, and just making it an option, obviously not mandatory. People have the option to continue to do telehealth and have that as an option. But for those that are really expressing a need to be seen in person, who are having, just a lot of crisis issues and other factors in place, then just giving them the option.
Thank you,
I'm going to jump in real quick for Analia. I know she's had her hand up for a while.
Yeah, so before we transition to youth, we're going to go ahead and go to Analia. You had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if you guys already talked about this, but one of the other things that can go in the same lines of abuse is when there's someone in the family who's struggling with alcohol and drugs. And sometimes when that happens, a kid's either neglected or not fed what it needs to be. And so that's where we come from. Me and Natasha, we work for the children's program at Hazelton Betty Ford Foundation. And we serve kids from 7 to 12 whose parents either have a problem with alcohol or drugs, and we are here to give them some tools and just kind of be able to be there for them. And right now it's at no cost. So we do have virtual programs. We recommend for them to be in safe environments. So either the non-addictive parent or maybe a parent, a grandparent or aunt. So that way they can express themselves without censoring and trying to protect the parent. Addition to that, we also have a caregivers workshop that is free.
And I know that this is very specific to addiction, but one of the things that this parent workshop helps is really kind of how to talk to kids and how to express feelings and how to just kind of see kids from their experience, from their eyes. And I think that it really helps parents kind of like understand the balance of that, and also for them to self-care. And I feel like this gives them a lot of insight of what to do in circumstances like when a parent is either recovery or active addiction. Sorry, that's my 2-year-old. But so I just want to make sure that you guys know that there is resources out there for parents as well. We do offer that also, and at no cost too. It is only a 1-day workshop for 3 hours. Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Analia.
we know that a lot, substance abuse is huge in our county. And obviously could definitely increase the chances of child abuse when that's occurring, whether it's neglect or actual abuse. Do you guys have any kind of information or services that you provide just to everyone? Because I don't think people that are encountering that problem are all going to end up at your center. Unfortunately, either they don't want it or they haven't had the circumstance to land them there. Do you guys have information that could be valuable to pretty much everyone that may be having a problem with substance abuse?
With our program, I think now that because it's virtual, it's more accessible, and kids from all over the states have attended our program. So I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly, but it is access to everybody that wants to do it. All they need is just like a caregiver that kind of can go through our link, because we don't use Zoom, we use WebEx. It's a different setting, but it is very easily accessible, and there's no cost to it. At this time, we're not really asking for anything other than just kind of like the situation of the child, that where they're, what's happening, and if they have either a sibling or a parent or a grandparent that's struggling with addiction. And so we try to give them those tools. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a parent, it could be a sibling. And we have had kids that tend that their older sibling is using drugs and alcohol. And so they have that space and time where they can talk about how they feel, and along with other kids, so they don't feel so alone. So I don't know, Natasha, if you want to shine something in, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Actually, we're gonna go ahead and go into the next section now. Samantha, I do want to touch on you before we go ahead and transition into the next section. So if you can make it a little bit brief so that we can go ahead and go into the next
one. I just wanted to bring up, hi, my name is Samantha. I'm a victim service provider. I'm program director for a tribal organization, but I want to speak as a grandma because I have a 2-year-old grandson, and his world is very small, and I worry about him developmentally. But that's the one, I think, in doing the work that we're doing, what we're seeing, we're not talking about that demographic of little kids that are not school age, that are home, and what's going on with them, because the clients that come to us, we're seeing that the underage kids are behind on their well baby checkups. Maybe they haven't been to the dentist. There's some real things going on that aren't being addressed. And I think the number, we typically get a lot of domestic violence cases. And what we're seeing, they come to us because of an ICWA or a CPS case, right, is opened. And then we get into a lot of, we're dealing with a lot of issues of neglect or whatever. So while we're putting the resources out for school age kids and kids that are going, have some interaction, what about the littler kids that don't have a voice? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Samantha, for that. You bring up a great point. Thank you. So like I mentioned, we're going to transition into our youth section now. So those service providers that service youth, and also youth that are attending from our youth commissions. These are questions for you guys. So are you guys educated on how to observe if a peer is being abused, Or have you ever been educated on how to suspect abuse? Does anybody
No,
want to
personally,
share?
I haven't.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, what was
Sorry,
that?
no. I was saying, no, I haven't had any experience or any training in spotting that. I did do an online course that was like offered for mental health and like suicidal thoughts, but not for child abuse or anything.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to share? Any other youth or
YAC definitely provides those opportunities to be involved in like webinars, suicide prevention. Again, I think there was like a child abuse one. I don't know, I don't remember, but definitely not like the average youth doesn't really know how to recognize those signs. Like, say if somebody's like pulling away, having like bad grades, not talking as much, you know, just like a change in behavior. I don't think like the average person knows about that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Any other youth that want to share? Or what would be something, a way that we can just bring more awareness and help you guys also be more aware of, you know, those red flags or anything like that?
Somebody said that their teenagers said no to child abuse and said the only info provided for SI was the national hotline.
Thank you for that.
Somebody said we train our students in suicide signs and symptoms, but not abuse.
Good to know.
As a YAC member, I can say I did get that training, but as a regular student, I would not have. The only training I can say that made a huge impact on me was a school shooter training at Palm Springs, but I did not receive that at the Desert Sands district. So I think that we need to establish that more within like school, like a mental health week or abuse week and things like that, because I would have not known. And you're required to be at school, so that means you're required to take that course and that training.
Thank you, Zaraya.
Can I ask a follow-up question to them, Noemi?
Too, yeah. Go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to ask Soraya and the other two young ladies that spoke, since there isn't a lot of the education, do you guys know what to do? And maybe Soraya, in your case, because you have had that training, but if you hadn't had it, do you guys know what to do if you have witnessed or have any suspicion that a peer or a friend has been abused? Well, do you guys know what to do in that case?
Personally, I think I would be really clueless as to what to do. I'd ask them, you know, if there's anything I personally can do to help them, but being, you know, a youth as well, there's probably not that much unless it involves like calling CPS. And I don't know at what point it would be appropriate to do that. But other than that, no.
Thank you, Amaya. That's very helpful and insightful for us. What about Soraya or the other young lady that spoke?
Yeah, I would not know either. I would go like straight to like, I think an adult that works at the school. But then again, I would be like, wait, so what if this person isn't like that? And then like bringing this up with someone else would, like, you know, inhibit his or her mental health. So then it'd be tricky, but I'd still report it. And then I don't know, I'd be really confused about the entire situation. I have not been trained.
I think as any student, anyone would be, of course, but I feel that since I did have a training similar to that, I feel more confident to think that whether I know it or not, I would rather report it to an adult that is a mandated reporter than keep it to myself or be the counselor that I am not certified to be. I also know that if they ever need any resources, that because of the training, I know where to find them. or I can give them information of what I know about Hope Collaborative or any safe house that they need to stay at because I know this information.
Which brings us back to the point of Safe House and like all those resources. I had no idea that they existed prior to being in YAC. And I think that is a problem because I think that all students should know about this in case of an emergency.
Absolutely agree. Thank you, Natalie and Soraya. I know.
Thank you guys for just being a voice for youth and just giving us more insight as to how we can, you know, better our services to provide to you guys and just to the families in general. So another, I know we briefly touched on this, but what are some creative ways to spread awareness amongst your guys' age group specifically? Is there anything that came to mind with you guys that, you know, that we can reach out to you guys a certain way?
So on Instagram, you can tag the schools or some like the schools, you know, different accounts under like a post that you have just to reach like a wider audience. But I think it's better if the teachers themselves like don't brush it off, because sometimes they're like, oh yeah, you can take the panorama survey, or you can like look at this, but then they like move on with class. So I think it's better if they like emphasize it, incentivize it, so then we know about the resources.
Thank you, Natalie. Anybody else? Or is there any service providers out there that have worked with youth that's, you know, there's something that works better for you guys? I'm sorry, Araceli, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to share from my perspective as far as outreach and reaching teens, particularly on abuse. What I have seen work really well is when teachers, classroom teachers, individual classroom teachers require it as part of like their daily lesson plan for the day, whether that be for younger kids or older. They usually attend and they usually participate, but it really varies from teacher to teacher and school district to school district, because this information has been shared with all local school districts and it's actually used nationally. It's really up to each district and how you know, they want to apply it to their individual schools. But I've seen it done that way and it works pretty well.
I have a follow-up question for the youth, Noemi. I've heard, is it Zoraya? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Zoraya. You mentioned a couple of times like mental health week or mental health Wednesdays. Like from your perspective as a student, what is going on like days and weeks that lets you know like what's that experience like? Is it like the teacher talks about it in class? Like what does that week entail? Like is it just it's mental health week, everybody know it's mental health week and nothing happens, or like does something happen? So I'm not a student, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's such a great question, just because I do like how there is a mental health week, but I don't feel that it is treated as such, because like how you're saying, do teachers talk about it? Like no, they really don't. Or we're just made to dress up or share notes. Or I mean, one time I really enjoyed that at LQ they offer like you could pet dogs. Like I thought that was like the most interactive and useful way of having like a stress-free day or week. But I feel like those weeks and those just activities do need to be I don't know how to say but they do need to target more the mental health rather than the activity, because it's very brief, you know. Like I was saying with like the other trainings and stuff like that, they need to be treated like if it was like a school shooter training or like anything else. Like mental health and abuse or anything like that is very important and should be treated as such. So I hope that, and any like board members or members of like both districts that I've been a part of can see that even though it is fun to dress up according to a day, it is also that much more important to learn about that certain day. Like Wednesdays, like, well, let's learn about this certain sickness, like anxiety, and let's see how we can treat ourselves or what resources we need if we're feeling that way.
Okay, and then one question and then I'm done because I love to listen to you guys, girls. So like, because the pandemic has been like so impactful on mental health, right? Like we talked about isolation and depression, anxiety, stress, failing grades, child abuse, domestic violence, substance abuse. Do you think that all students would want to learn about those topics, like a pep rally, a virtual pep rally, where we're like, today we're going to talk about domestic violence? Do you think that that's something that's necessary for all students to know and learn about? Or do you think that it should be like something just for like youth advisory councils? Do you think all youth could benefit from learning about what's happened in COVID and the things that are like have been affected by it?
Yeah.
And resources too.
No, of course. Just there's so much in one question.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. Obviously, I think every student needs it. It's just COVID, has made it so much harder because I myself don't feel very motivated to go to a virtual assembly because it's not going to feel the same. You know, I'm not going to see my friends. I'm not going to laugh at the same activities that happen and watch, you know, my other classmates like get whipped cream in their face. You know, that's stuff that happens in school. So to me, it's more about getting on with the trends. I feel like my school personally on their social media has been really great with like highlighting women for Women's History Month, or those of African American descent for Black History Month and things like that. So I think that hopping onto TikTok and making dances that are informative, or posting things, and even doing podcasts, because those are rising up, those will really help. And especially if it's student driven, I think that's the best way, because even though it is great to have teachers give us resources, only us students will care about what our other students are saying. We value each other's opinions and ideas more than what an adult is saying, because adults are in like the educational field, are telling us what we need to do, what we need to learn, and things like that. We don't feel like friend and friend, as it should be. I can agree on that, but yeah.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I also forgot to mention that us as YAC students, we're very happy to be a part of it. And I'm happy that I'm a part of it because I can give those resources. And I don't know how many YAC members are on here, but I hope you guys realize that you guys can be such a huge resource to your friends.
Thank you. I want to mention, Abram says, it sounds like resources about how to identify trusted adults and reliable, safe resources for youth is necessary as well. And possible trainings for adults present on how to be a trusted adult and resource ally at Planned Parenthood of the Pacific Southwest. They offer presentations and trainings for parents and youth on healthy relationships and consent that covers these topics of talking with each other openly and honestly in age-appropriate ways that are trauma-informed. And he also put in his email in there for you if you want to go ahead and take a look at what else it covers on the group chat.
All right, so thank you everyone for sharing. I do have a resource. We mentioned the Operation Safe House resource, so I wanted to share a quick video and that you guys can also share. So I will share also our media platforms that we have so that you guys can also have access to a lot of the resources that we share, but we have a lot of events going on throughout the year. On different topics, specifically in April, with April being Child Abuse Awareness Month, we'll have a lot of activities and a lot of different workshops that we're going to be offering. So if you guys don't already follow our Facebook or our Instagram or Twitter accounts, please feel free to follow them. But I'll go ahead and play this.
Started, Noemi, since we're going to be wrapping up with this and the resources, I just want to give a huge thank you to everyone who's here today. You know, we heard some of the stuff that we've all been kind of aware of, but I definitely did learn new information, and especially thankful to hear from the youth specifically. To me, that was probably the most powerful, to hear directly what works for you guys and what you know and what you don't know, and just for joining us. You guys were so courageous to share, and thank you so much for being here. We appreciate all of your participation from everyone.
Yes, thank you everyone for being a voice for your guys' families. So thank you. Okay. Can you guys hear it?
I do not hear anything.
I think the audio is off.
It's off. Okay, let me do it again.
Could you restart it?
Kids who tell of
Yep.
There's a lot of bad things that happens to kids who were just kids and who didn't do one thing to deserve any of it. If you're one of them, believe me, you are not alone. Kids who tell of trauma end up being much happier. Not only can the horrific events be put to an end, but kids can find whole new sets of people that care about them and will help them in their future. We have an anonymous text line. You don't even have to talk loud.
I'm sorry guys, it froze. Having technical difficulties here. Okay, I'm sorry about that. It's not gonna let me play it anymore. So we do have a few more resources for you guys, but if you guys do want access to the video, I would strongly encourage you guys to follow our different media platforms that we have. But like I mentioned, I do want to thank everyone for being a part of today's discussion. We really had such great feedback from all of you guys. Thank you so much for being here and being a voice for your guys' community. Do we have Ashley? Ashley, do you want to go ahead and talk about the resource?
So my name is Ashley Prakash, and I'm an intern in Family Service Association, and I'm interning under the Hope Collaborative. So I'm just going to go briefly on this resource PowerPoint. So on this slide, there's just different helplines and resources for parents who are just trying to find specific resources for themselves, and or if anyone knows any parents who need resources for anything like stress support and just getting information about, you know, their children and what they're going through and how to deal with certain things that they're going through and their kids are going through. If you go to the next slide, these are different helplines or hotlines for teens to get help, or if anyone knows someone who needs help, you can even ask questions to these phone numbers, or you can actually text them too. You'll have a professional person to talk to you, and you can ask questions on how to be educated and how to, you know, suspect abuse, or like if you're not sure of something, like, you know, you can ask those questions to these professionals and they'll let you know, okay, this is like how to go with it and stuff like that. If you go to the next one, these are for some teachers. You can give these resources to your students, like What's Up Safe House. You can give Connect IE. This resource is just basic resources in your local areas. If you put your zip code or your area down, it tells you the local areas that serve certain resources that you may need. And then for the last slide, this website goes through these resources like disaster preparedness, tag preparation, saving match, planning, educational and development. They go through each and every single one of these, and they kind of guide you through and educate you through each and every one of these things if you're not sure on how to do it or anything like that. And on the last slide, this is our Hope Collaborative social media platforms. And if you are interested in participating in any of the events that are going to be happening throughout this year, you can just search Hope County Riverside on Facebook or Hope Collab. You can type those down and then you can find them on those social media platforms.
So thank you everyone for attending. Like I mentioned, please follow our social media platforms to stay up to date with any of the upcoming events for April. You know, April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, so feel free to check out our website and see what activities we have coming up. But I really want to thank you guys so much for being a part of this discussion. I hope that you guys have also left with valuable information so that you guys can also be able to provide those services or have an awareness of what services are needed in our community so that we can provide that support for our families. So thank you guys so much for joining today's discussion. Is there any questions or anything that you guys would like to make before we go ahead and close out?
Noemi, some people would like to know if you would be able to post that link here for them to be able to view it on their own time.
Okay, let me
for the
go
video,
ahead.
please.
Yeah.
And then you can also check out this video on our YouTube or on our Hope Facebook page. And
So I
there it
have
is. A kiss.
Yes, I have just linked the link on there for the chat. So I would strongly encourage you guys to follow our Facebook pages. We try to share different resources for you guys on there, but also upcoming events. So please feel free to follow our pages. Anything else? All right, everyone.
Is the
Well,
link
thank
that you shared?
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is the link that you shared for the Facebook or is it for like the slideshow?
It was for the video that we had.
Okay, would we be able to access the slideshow on your Facebook page?
Actually, we don't have it posted on our Facebook page, but I can certainly send it to you if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Or maybe in the chat.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else want to share anything before we go ahead and close out? All right, thank you everyone for joining. You guys have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.
Thank you.